Today we have Kyle Allison, the managing partner of Hospitality MD. Kyle is the defibrillator that restarts failing heartbeat scores. Today, he will teach us how to train our front desk staff, make hotel operations run nice and smooth, and get our reviews back on track. All this and more on today's True Hotel Leaders, where leaders teach leaders. Do you want to give your housekeepers a raise but you just can't afford it? No problem. We will increase their pay for you and it will cost your hotel nothing. Stop the hiring crisis and pay your employees more money. The hiring crisis ends today at We Tip Hotels. For more information, visit wetiphotels.com. Hey, what's going on? You know who it is. Bruce Jordan here, and thank you for tuning into another episode of True Hotel Leaders. We have the man here. We got Kyle Allison from Hospitality MD. What's been going on, Kyle?
Bruce, thank you so much for having me, my friend. It is an absolute pleasure to be here on location in Tampa, Florida to do this interview.
Anytime. So tell us a little bit, usually the first question I ask is like how you got started in hotels and, what made you decide to stick to it. So let's start there.
Well, I will always give credit where credit is due, and that is to my mom. She's a United Airlines flight attendant for 38 years now, still going. And being the son of a flight attendant allowed me to experience the travel experience from start to finish from a young age pretty accessibly. Free airfare, it doesn't get any better than that. And that's actually how I got to you, was with my mom's benefits. Didn't pay a dime, got upgraded to first class actually.
Wow.
And didn't even pay 1 cent.
That's crazy. I'm taking my next road trip with you.
Those perks are still holding strong multiple decades later. So anyway, my mom, she was the reason why I'm in this business. She not only allowed me to experience what it's like to travel, to stay in hotels, to fly, but also outside of the hotel and outside of the airplane, and for her context, showed me how hospitality is transcendental to life. She would always say, let's do one random act of kindness per day, and just those sort of things that really make hospitality a lifestyle more so than just a profession. So I had that kind of experience growing up. I actually, at one point, I was 6 years old and I turned my parents' home into a hotel.
Wow.
So when I say that I was in it, I was in it. My parents were so lucky because they had their beds made for them every day. Stayover service was done for them. Got their beds made, bathroom cleaned. They had in-room dining menus in their room. So whatever they needed something, just, and then they got waited on hand and foot for a while. So some of the other kids were playing video games, playing Pokemon cards, playing all that kind of stuff. Me and my brother actually were playing hotel and serving my parents. So it was really something that's been innate for me. And then flash forward, I feel like I kind of, there's a book, Second Mountain by David Brooks, great book. What he says is there, when you find your passion, there's usually an enunciation moment that happens when you're young. And then eventually you make your way back to that if you're lucky, right? Some people never do. That's why you see unhappy people, bitter people who they're not living their passion and living their purpose. So my point in that is I had these enunciation moments as a kid, and I think during my adolescence I kind of lost that. You got school, extracurriculars, just everything that happens when you're growing up. But then I was jumped right back into it because, again, giving credit where credit is due to my mom. When I was 17, it was time for me to get a summer job. And my mom actually applied for a hotel for me, didn't tell me, got a call from the director of HR. Hey, we got your application, ready to come in for an interview. I was like, yeah, okay, I guess so. And then I was like, did you do something? She said, yeah, I applied for this hotel. So then, I ended up getting the job, starting in hotels, and then it was just all over from there, man. Wow. So 17 years old to the present, still going. Never worked anywhere else.
So he's been training since he was 6 years old to be in hotels.
Now I heard of people starting out young, but yeah, that's pretty young.
You know, the only thing that I would say that, you know, because there are like, you know, people that you and I both know from the industry who, you know, have grown up in hotels where, like, you know, maybe their parents own and operate a motel or hotel, and they actually grew up genuinely operating a hotel. You know, at at my parents' place, they were the only guests, but I treated them well, but they were at the end of the day the only guests. So yes, I'm definitely in it, but also mad respect to the that really young generation of people who are genuinely born into the business as well. So
with your parents' place, I'm assuming all your review scores was like 5 stars. Like
I think so. I think so. Yeah, there's one TripAdvisor review up for 5 stars.
Now you have your own show. It's called Hospitality MD. Like, what made you decide that, you know what, I'm going to become a cinematographer, and I'm going to learn how to use all this camera equipment just so we can, you know, have our own show and we can talk about hospitality and share it with the industry. Like,
I will take no credit for the cinematography part of it.
Okay.
I will take no credit for that because it's, don't get me wrong, I've been learning along the way. I've been picking up on things, you know. I feel like I can have a conversation about it, a conversational understanding, but I really give all the credit to the Hospitality MD team, Greg and Tom. Greg is my business partner, and he does a lot of the tech stuff, and then Tom, our creative director, who really is actually a filmmaker. He's actually an expert in this stuff. So I give props to them, but the origins of the show itself were, it was actually Greg's idea, my business partner. He, you know, at the time, listening to a lot of Gary Vee. You remember Gary Vee?
Yeah, that's Gary Vee's the man.
So, right, of course. So we're listening to a lot of Gary Vee. And, you know, of course, the message is, you know, stop caring what other people think. Don't let judgment get in your way. Stop living your life based on other people's opinions. Start posting content for what you want to be known for.
Okay.
Right? So that's his message, and it really ended up resonating not only with Greg, but with myself. And, you know, Greg was already doing a podcast with his son, who was 9 years old at the time. It was called Backpack
that is
News.
So cool.
But when you're doing a podcast with a 9-year-old, they don't really do anything, right? So he was like, I'm writing all the scripts, I'm producing it, I'm planning everything, all this stuff. I'm like, let me do something that I just, you know, my son is 9, it is what it is, right? Yeah. So he said, hey, do you want to do a hospitality podcast? And I said, yes, no questions asked, let's do it. And then I don't remember how I thought of the name Hospitality MD, but I don't know, I still love the name to this day, man. That's the one thing that I can actually say that I'm proud of, is the name, and then our tagline, hospitality is everyone's business. But yeah, so that started in 2018. We started out with a couple actually video interviews. Was our first, it was a podcast, but we actually didn't put it, we put it on YouTube at first. You know, then we both working at the same hotel, so we fell off the wagon a little bit, and then we came back. And you know, I think it's important for really everybody listening, right? If you are trying to be known for something, you want to put out content, right? And Bruce, you can probably attest to this. It's okay if you fall off the wagon every now and again. You know, obviously you don't want to do that, but life happens. But as long as you don't give up, as long as you keep pushing the needle forward, it's gonna be okay, and you'll continue to do it. Like, we released our first episode in 2018, and you know, then a couple months later we stopped doing it for a while, and we still have fans who checked out our first episode, and even though we stopped, once we came back, they welcomed us with open arms again. They continue to listen, they continue to tune in. So one thing that you can guarantee in life is that it's gonna come at you and it's gonna be challenging for you, but if you keep doing something every day to push the needle forward, even if you have to take a break and you come back and you just keep going, and it's cumulative, and I think it's worth it nonetheless. So, you know, a lot of people will start and then give up completely and then say, well, because I wasn't consistent, it's just dead, it's over with. No, just come back to it. It's okay. You can always come back, you can always keep going.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, we got a lot of things going on right now in the hotel industry with COVID, and, you know, people are getting a little discouraged. Some people are saying, I'm done, I'm never coming back. And then you have new front desk agents come into the fold, and it's not like we can onboard them like we used to with training. Most people are like, okay, you know what? They know the system. They're trained. Like, you know, like they know Opera. We taught them Opera. So next is on cue. They're good to go now, and they just don't really teach that customer engagement anymore. Like, what are some of the things that you had to do in your hotel career as far as like training with to get more a little bit more engagement, like teach customer engagement?
Are you saying how did I train when I first started, or
Oh,
how
yeah.
did I train people?
How did you train people?
Gotcha. Okay, so this is the lost art of hospitality right now, genuinely. Like you said, it's typically, especially right now, and don't get me wrong, I empathize with the operations side of it. I empathize with when you have, you know, burnt out staff, they need help, they need somebody to come in. I get it. You have a lot of arrivals, you have a lot of rooms that need to be cleaned, sure. But I think there needs to be an effort made, just like I said with the content creation of the podcast. Even if you fall off at first, that doesn't mean that you just give up completely and you don't come back to it. Just like hospitality training, even if you have to throw them at the desk for a couple shifts or more than a couple shifts to get them started to help out the team, that doesn't mean that you never train them again, because that training period is over. It's never over. You're always training. You're constantly evolving, constantly pushing the needle forward. So one of the biggest things that I actually would recommend as just like a practical, easy hospitality training tip, this can be for any department in the hotel, but of course it works best with your central nervous system of the hotel, your front office team. So we know what the problems are with the hotel. Why? Because the guests tell us what the problems are with
Absolutely.
the hotel, right? We have every outlet imaginable for guests to communicate with us, and they do, whether it's text message, if your hotel has a text messaging platform, whether it's just calling down to the front desk, whether it's talking to you in person, or whether it's with a internal review source like Medallia, or an external review source like Google Reviews, Yelp, or TripAdvisor. So we have all these options. It's infinite, and the guests will communicate to us with what's going on. So the key to being a good hotel operator and being a good hospitalitarian is actually listening to what the guest has to say and then caring and doing something about it. Because a lot of times we see hoteliers will just see the reviews and like, oh, it's just another bad review, or another good review. Let's just copy and paste our apology note into this response to check the box that we responded to reviews, right?
Copy and paste.
Right? And how phony is that? You can totally see it. So the guest is telling us what we need to know, and there's always going to be at every hotel your recurring issues that come up, or something that, you know, might be even just a one-off that you know might come back again. So let's just say, for example, a guest staying with a baby in the room finds a lighter under the sofa bed. Been there, right? It's a kind of a specific issue, but I've been there. It's one of those things that, you know, you never want a baby to be crawling around on the floor and then find a lighter under the bed. That's just not classy.
What would their baby doing smoking at such a young age?
Man, I know. Watch your babies, guys. So you got a baby. They go under the bed. They find a lighter. Maybe you hear that in a review. Maybe the guest tells you, okay, so now what do you do? Obviously, let's just say that you've already resolved the guest issue and it was just one person who did it. Now you're going to take that, you're going to write it down on a piece of paper, fold it up, and throw it into a jar, a hat, a whatever, something. And every day during your pre-shift meeting, which if you're not having those, you're making a huge mistake, right? Every department has to have a meeting to align themselves before the shift starts. So this is happening multiple times a day, ideally 3 times a day. So you put it in there, and then every day when your team comes into work, you shake up the jar and let them pick out a piece of paper. And in that jar will be everything from my air conditioning's not working, to my baby found a lighter under the bed, to the hot water didn't turn on. And now we ingrain it into their minds every single day. What do you do when these issues happen? How do you empathize? How do you resolve it? And how are you empowered to fix it? So, because here's the thing, this industry, there are people who have like an innate sense of hospitality in them. And it's very easy for those people to adjust and to empathize and to make it right for the guests. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been successful in this industry, is because I feel that I have that bone in my body. Maybe it's from my mom, maybe it's just because of my DNA, but I feel like that's one of the things that's come naturally to me, is dealing with guests, resolving their issues, making them happy, and being empathetic. But we can't expect that from everybody.
Yeah.
So this practice of constantly reinforcing how to deal with guest issues, even if they're recalling it by memory, it's still going to be effective, and it's still better than somebody freezing up, shutting down, or retreating with anxiety when they have a guest issue. So I think that's been one of the most effective means of training that I've found for hospitality and service training. And then also, it's just, you know, I would say that's a big, like a more practical one. But where the most nuanced training happens is kind of off the record in small one-off conversations. If you're observing your team in the lobby, or let's say you're in housekeeping and you're walking the floors and you see an interaction between a room attendant getting something from her cart and a guest walking down the hallway, those moments where you see these interactions and you jump in and address what exactly is what you've seen.
We got so much going on inside of this industry, and I can't say that everything is going to be the same as it was before. There's going to be a lot of changes that we're going to have to make on our part. Like, what are like the first thing that you see is going to change in this industry when it comes to things happening at the front desk from the operational side?
So you want to know what I think is going to change or what I think should change?
Let's go with both. Let's start
Okay.
with going to change.
Okay, well, what I think is gonna change, and it's already been happening before COVID, but as we know, COVID has accelerated a lot of the inevitable, right? So, you know, I actually think that the labor management standards are going to continue to decrease. So we're gonna keep operating on leaner and leaner teams. And with that in mind, how do you remedy that? I think automation and technology is going to start to creep in sooner than we think, and we're seeing it, and the time is right now, because in cities like Chicago, where I'm from, we've seen like self-check-in kiosks, for example, for over a decade at some hotels. Some of your bigger box hotels, we've seen this technology. It wasn't as good back then, and the guest wasn't maybe not ready for it completely, but now the technology is great and the guests are ready for it. So, and not to mention, the labor management standards are decreasing, right? So of course now's the time. So, you know, I don't think this is gonna come as a surprise to many people. Technology is here. We have to learn how to operate our hotels utilizing it. But is it gonna take a while? Yes, because the hotel industry is very slow moving when it comes to widespread adoption of technology. I mean, there's still hotels out there in 2021 that you have to sign a paper registration card to put your license plate number on there with your car in the parking lot, all this stuff. Yet when we have and we are doing bucket checks and seriously, and truth be told, guys, I have never done a bucket check in my career.
No way.
I haven't been in the industry long enough, never done one.
Wow.
So I've never done one, and I've already had a decent career in this industry. There are hotels who are still doing them every single day, multiple times a day. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are hotels that have robots delivering amenities to your rooms. There are hotels that have, like the Reverb, right, in Atlanta, who has 0 front desk agents, right? And there's just 8 or 9 check-in kiosks that you go and they cut your keys and they check your ID and they get your method of payment. So you have 2 different polar opposites on the spectrum. So I think it's going to take a long time for everybody to kind of catch up. So we're always kind of fighting that resistance, if you will. But it's here and it's happening, and it's so it will change. That will happen. labor budgets are going to be smaller. We're going to be running leaner. And then in terms of what I think should change, what I think should change right now in the moment is that we need to go back to our roots of being a community-centered, focused organization that acts in its purpose. Like, hotels are major cornerstones for all the communities, and it's about time that we started acting like that again. Hotels are major hubs of employment for communities. I think we talked about this off the record. You know, you go to some of these rural towns where there's very few opportunities, but everywhere you go off the highway, there's a backbone of lodging in this country.
Yes.
And they will be the
Yes.
main hubs of employment for those people who are forgotten about in these rural areas. When you go to city centers, like think Orlando, think Vegas, think Chicago, hotels employ lots of people. And a lot of times hotels are a helping hand out of poverty for people like immigrants who are coming to this country who maybe aren't familiar with the language or who don't have education or a developed skill set. And hotels are a helping hand for those people to give them employment, give them a purpose, give them skills that they can develop and acquire over the course of their careers in hotels. So the importance of hotels for the people they employ, the community gathers there. This is the backdrop for their most intimate moments, like I mentioned, and for their events and where they gather. And not to mention, they're a great generator of taxes and other things for the local economy as well. And where you have hotels, other businesses will follow, because if you have a hotel, you need a restaurant in the area that's going to be able to support it, because the hotel restaurant is, you know, guests will eat 1 out of 3 meals on average at the hotel restaurant. So if you're a business owner and you know that and a hotel exists, now you have more economic development that's surrounding that. So hotels are wildly important for the community, and we need to remember that, respect that, and then act on it and really do our part to make a difference rather than being a detriment to the community. Because just being a hotel in and of itself is such an honor and a respect to have that in your community. So by operating it, we should be operating it with a community first mindset, employees first, guests first, very people focused. And I think right now we're not really seeing that on a widespread basis. Don't get me wrong, owners, I empathize with you. I know owners have probably taken the biggest hit during the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
Let's be real, because the employees, right, they got laid off, so that's a hit, right? But you have this, unemployment benefits, which have been a great safety net for everybody who was abruptly let go. Owners have invested a lifetime of saving, a lifetime of working, investing, all this stuff into their asset, and now they see that the cash flow isn't there anymore. So did they take the biggest hit out of anybody? Absolutely. I think they did. And we should recognize that, right? You know, I don't want to say that demonize owners by any means, because they are the reason why we have the employment from hotels. They are the reason why we have these meccas for the community, and they did get hit hard. But I will say my word of caution to the owners is don't lose sight of why we're here. Don't lose sight of the purpose of the hotel. I know that, you know, we haven't seen the cash flows or the profitability that, you know, you want to see. But if you lose sight of why we're here, it's only going to get you to the next month. You know, it's only going to get you from P&L to P&L to P&L, and you're never going to flourish again. You have to make long-term plays, and I think that starts with the guests, the staff, and with the community.
So, new guy, front desk agent, just coming in the door. What advice do you have for him?
Run. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not serious, guys. This is a great industry. Don't run. You've made it to a great place. My first, thing that I would say is that you're arriving to a hotel where you can basically be anything you want to be, because hotels and hospitality are the only industry that I can think of that everything is within the sphere of the business, right? Security, accounting, sales, events, food and beverage, any type of operations roles. So it's really anything that you want to do can be found. Engineering, design, everything. So first of all, you made it to the right place where, even if you discover that front desk itself isn't for you, you're still in an industry that's going to support your growth. So you should be happy and hopeful for that. In terms of your existing role at the front desk, my words of advice would be to not let the day-to-day get the best of you. Because why do we have so much turnover? Why do we have people, I've been, worked with people who have had genuine panic attacks on busy days at the hotel where they've literally had to be removed from the front desk, and they've had a panic attack in the back of house, and then at that point I just sent them home because no way I'm going to let them go back out there. You can't do that. But I've seen it happen so many times. And then you ask yourself, okay, you got panic attacks, you got people turning over, you have people who don't, maybe like the Sally example I said, where they're just blowing off the guests when they come to you with an issue. So why is that happening? And I think it's because the day-to-day is very difficult for a lot of people. So not letting the day-to-day get you down is going to be the biggest thing that you should keep in your mind. Now, easier said than done, right? Don't let it bother you. It's not the end of the world. Well, easy for me to say, but it's hard in theory. So in practice and application. So what are some things that you can actually do to not let the day-to-day get you down? Number one, as a manager, how can you, for your team, establish a culture where they don't have to be afraid to express their frustrations. So if you just dealt with a guest who was screaming at you, you should have a culture where that person is able to come into a safe environment, in whether it's the back office or the employee break room, and openly be able to say, like, man, that guest was an asshole, or whatever the case might be. And I know that sounds the antithesis to hospitality, but it's not, because you need to let out these frustrations, because at the end of the day, people are going to yell at you, people are going to give you a hard time, people are going to sometimes even go as far as to belittle you. These things do happen, and we can't pretend that it doesn't. So there should be a culture of your hotel where the team members shouldn't be afraid to vent, right? Because now they have the guests yelling at them, and now they have anxiety with the management team and with their coworkers, and then they're going to turn over. That's the way that I see it. I think the more open you are with allowing your employees to feel what they're feeling, the more that they will be willing to stick it out, and the more that you're going to reduce your turnover, and the more that you'll have long tenured associates. Because I think the one thing that we've learned from COVID and the hiring crisis and all this stuff that we're going through is that, wow, the value of our associates who've been there in their positions for a long time. How do we miss them? We let them go at the beginning, and now we want them, and they're not all coming back. Wow, that we needed that institutional knowledge. So Absolutely. Now if that's gone forever, maybe it is. Maybe that institutional knowledge is gone. We have people with decades of experience for even just one hotel that, who knows the hotel better than those people? Gone. So now you have new people. We have to nurture an environment where those will be the next generation of institutional knowledge for that property, because you will never achieve what you want to achieve with your hotel if you don't have team members who are lasting for a specific period of time, right? If you have 3 months here, 4 months there, sometimes one shift and then ghost, you'll never achieve what you want to achieve. We're seeing that, right? We're seeing it. So biggest advice is don't let it get you down on the day-to-day stuff. And then for the managers, how do you make that happen? Because it's your responsibility. Make sure your team feels comfortable feeling their feelings, feeling their emotions, and support them. It's really not rocket science. I don't think it is. It's pretty much basic emotional intelligence. But it's not everywhere. It's basic emotional intelligence, but it's not commonplace, really. So
speaking of frustration, I always said, like, you have to have a special type of mindset to do this business, because no one can just take a bunch of punches where it comes from the top, where it comes from the top on down, or from guests, or from employees, and all across the board. You know, you're getting hit left and right with complaints, aggravation, yelling, screaming, keys thrown at you. Lord knows what else is going on, and just walk away from that and go home. And what happens is a lot of employees don't get a chance to really release it. So they end up taking all of that built up aggravation and contempt, and they take it home with them, and they release it at home. So, you know, you've come up with a lot of failed marriages and a lot of bad relationships and so on and so forth. What used to work for me is that I started doing UFC. Like, I do Muay Thai and kickboxing. So I'll take all of that built up aggression, and I would take it out on a punching bag or inside the sparring ring or whatever the case may be. Like, what are some of the suggestions that you recommend as far as for getting out that pent up aggression from getting all those complaints just thrown on you throughout the day?
Well, that's a great point, man. Actually, I'm gonna have to be more careful around you. Know, I didn't know that you were a UFC guy, so I'll be on my best behavior. But you know, for me personally, music has always been a great outlet. So I'll just get out my guitar and play my guitar, or you know, honestly, even just to, like, you know, my career working in hotels, it's actually been helpful to me, ironically enough, to do Hospitality MD for a while as a side project, because just when I thought there's no hope for this industry, I get to interview somebody or talk to somebody who re-inspires me again and resets my passion for the industry. So for me, I think that, ironically enough, networking and connecting with powerful hospitality people and people who really have a great head on their shoulders has been helpful. So now I know I'm a weird guy, and I love this industry more than I would expect most people to. But for somebody, you know, at home who's thinking, I'm so frustrated, right? Like, try connecting with people outside of your immediate circle in the industry. Like, if you're watching this, send Bruce a DM, send me a DM, like, talk to people who can provide some sort of guidance, mentorship, or just a change of perspective for you. Because I swear, when you can reset your perspective and have an influx of new thoughts about something that you feel like you feel negatively toward, it can genuinely help. It's worked for me. I don't know if you've experienced that before, where you felt like, oh man, you know, I'm just maybe not cut out for this, or this is just kicking my ass or whatever, and then you go and talk to somebody in the industry, and then it just resets you. Have you experienced that?
Especially at the beginning of my career, yeah, because I was always that guy. I really didn't fit in very well because of the level of performance and dedication that I had. Like, I was that guy that people would say, "Hey man, slow down, you're making us look bad." So, so you know, it wasn't.
That's funny.
It wasn't a great feeling being like, because you feel like there's something wrong with you. Like, why do I have to slow down? Why can't you just speed up? You know what I mean? So, and I would get that everywhere I go. I remember I had a general manager a long time ago. He literally looked at me in the eyes and said, "You know what? You're great. We love having you here. Well, what the hell are you doing here? Like, there's no way you should be at this place." And you're like, you know what? Thanks for telling me that. Now I'm not going to be at this place anymore. You know, right. So it's just one of those things that, you know, people tend to undervalue themselves, and they try to put themselves in a category that they just don't belong in. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you can maybe share that with somebody else and they kind of help you see, you know, okay, maybe I do have that value, or I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe I just need to reset or change my perspective. I think it definitely helps. So, you know, I definitely think that for everybody, regardless of what your hobbies are, reach out, network, connect. I'm always available, and I love to be a resource for people. Bruce, I know you're going to be the same way, man. Like, it's what we're here to do, is help others. So there's that. And then what I would recommend not doing is binge drinking, drug abuse, taking it out on your family members or your loved ones. That is not healthy for you in the long term. And we see that a lot in this industry, where people are, every night after work, it's binge drinking with the coworkers, right? Like, that's cool. It's a good bonding experience, but it's not a long-term strategy for being happy and prosperous, right? You wanna develop a healthy coping mechanism. Pet your dog, right?
Yeah.
Pet your dog, get your cat to, knead and all that kind of stuff. Like that's healthier than substance abuse and that sort of stuff, because it won't be beneficial for you long term. And I've seen so many of my friends in and out of the industry go down that route, and I don't want to see it happen to good people who just wanted to get a job in the industry. Because there's actually, read this book, guys, if you haven't already. I don't know if you have. Heads and Beds by Jacob Tomsky.
I haven't read that book yet.
So yeah, it's basically about this New York front desk agent who spent like a couple decades working union front desk in New York City. And the beginning of the book, he's like basically like a perfect angel, like barely ever touched a drop of alcohol in his life. And by the end of the book, he's like a raging alcoholic after a decade or so of working in the hotel industry, especially working in front desk. I love the book. It's great, but it's also like, this stuff is real. Like, it happens to you. Like, you can really go down there. So there's definitely the healthy ways and not healthy ways to do it. But part of it is also going to be knowing yourself, knowing who you are. Earlier I mentioned the enunciation moment of like your passion and things that you have. So think back, did you like to paint when you were a kid and then you stopped doing that because it wasn't mature anymore, or you grew out of it, but you still really like it? Did you play the piano when it really relaxed you? So you have to dig deep within yourself to find out, what do you really like to do? What makes you happy? And then do that in your spare time. Even if you don't feel like doing it, right? Because we've all been there where we get off of a 9-day stretch of working and then we just sleep for 2 days straight.
Oh, yeah.
But you want to get up, you want to feel the sun on your skin, you want to, paint that picture, play the piano, talk to somebody who maybe has a different perspective. Just do something for yourself, because you deserve it. You got to take care of yourself. You take care of people all day long at the hotel. So care for yourself.
Man, I think we're coming with the frustration that's going on. A lot of us, especially the power performers, the employees are not getting the attention that they're used to. And I remember this was at the Hyatt and IHG. When they do their audit, they'll come, whatever department head they're auditing or whatever, they'll come and talk to the employees. And it was so weird that the department head that everybody loved, like that particular hotel or that general manager, they were like the worst on the list. But the GM or the department head that everybody hated, they were like the top 10. So you're gonna have like these a-hole bosses sometimes, and like there's nothing that you can really do about it. Like in my situation, if my employees had a problem, there's an issue, I had this rule, and it was the a-hole boss rule. Like if because everybody has that boss that they just wish they can hit them with a pillowcase or something. But I was like, if you ever got that need or that urge, there's a boxing gym right down the street. Throw on your boxing gloves. You can beat me up. I won't hit you back.
That's awesome. I freaking love that. That is awesome.
That was the rule, the punch your boss in the face rule. And like, at least you get it off your chest. You feel much better, and you won't get fired unless you knock me out.
Right, can't have that.
Yeah. So and it worked out pretty well. But what do you do with, people have bosses that aren't like me. So how do you handle those a-hole bosses that they may be an a-hole for the right reasons, like because they want to see you at your best, but they don't know how to present it or.
That's tough. Honestly, and people may not like this advice, but leave is a great option. Leaving is actually a wonderful option that very few people, I guess maybe they think it's bad of them to do that, but it's really not. Like, if you work in a hotel, you are valuable. If you have any hotel experience, and even if you don't, but let's assume that you do because you're working and your boss is an asshole. You have this experience. You are way more valuable than you think you are. So leave, find another job, go somewhere where you're going to be appreciated, because this is how the free markets work.
Yeah.
it applies to anything. So if you don't like working for somebody, and you can go with your skills and experience into a different place, do that. Take that, because then that person who is, not well received, to say it lightly, will be left with nobody.
Yeah.
And then eventually that person gets weeded out because their owners say, we don't want you anymore. We realize that you are the reason for our turnover. Because what a lot of employees don't realize of hotels is that most GMs actually get evaluated by their corporate office on the turnover rates in their hotel. That's a metric that GMs are accountable for. So if you leave, that's a nick on that accountability for that GM. And if you leave, then somebody says, wait, I can leave too because I'm not happy, boom, boom, boom. Then all of a sudden somebody who's not built for this industry is gone because they got fired by their owners in their corporate office. And now hopefully the owners in corporate office say, you know what were the qualities of that GM that made everybody leave? Even if his heart was in the right place because he wanted to be a performer or a high performing hotel, he was selfish. And we don't want that anymore. We want somebody who's going to be there for the team and drive results positively, not drive results negatively. So we're firing him and we're bringing in somebody who's going to be nicer. Now you've done your part in ridding the industry of somebody who was not meant to be here in the first place. So you've got an a-hole boss. Leave is my first advice, because you're not going to change that person. Mm-hmm. You're not going to change them. Because I guarantee you could say, hey, you know what, I don't really like the way you're treating me. You're definitely not the first person to say that to them, because that's just how they are. So leave is one option. And then option number 2, it's a tough one because I really do feel like leave is the best option. But I will say that, I'll go back and say, talk to somebody else, have a mentor outside of your GM. Because if the only source of leadership and inspiration for you is somebody who's negative, you are going to be burnt out, depressed, anxious, unhappy, bitter, resentful. And so you don't want that to seep onto you. So yeah, maybe for 8 hours a day you have to listen to your GM, but then maybe for a couple hours a week, at least you get to do a phone call or text or email or do a Zoom call with a mentor that you believe has a positive impact on you. So I guess, now that I've said this advice a second time now for, 2 questions, I really think that phrase, like, you are the composite of the 5 people you spend the most time with,
absolutely,
is super, like, legit and also super important in the hospitality industry and in life. So if you're surrounded by negative people at work, leave, or surround yourself with mentors who are positive, because you cannot afford to let the negativity get to you, because that's when you see angry people who don't want to take care of the guests, who don't care about hospitality, and then those people get promoted to managers who then don't care about their teams and also don't care about the guests, and then those managers get promoted to GM, and then the cycle starts all over again. It's a vicious cycle. So I definitely think the key ingredient in hospitality is just having a good attitude and, having a good work ethic as well.
For sure. Kyle, we appreciate you so much for coming out, buddy. Everybody, you can catch him on Hospitality MD, his YouTube channel. He's all over LinkedIn, and make sure you go check him out. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of True Hotel Leaders, where leaders teach leaders.